So I'm at the park again and I thought I'd make another video. I'm sitting underneath a tree, relaxing. I've been walking for like an hour and a half. And during my entire walk, I was thinking about this idea of why do I make YouTube videos and why do I do anything, right? Specifically YouTube videos or anything where you're doing it to like sort of connect with others, put yourself out there. And now, I guess you can look at that superficially and think that people are doing it, for admiration or success or to be noticed. I mean, I guess there's that also. But it's just, when you think about it, and when I specifically think about it, it's a strange thing because I think at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is make sense of the world I live in. So you talk about it, and you talk about every part of the world, whether it's a tech product or whether it's just existing, the universe, philosophy, because all of it is a part of existence, right? And you talk about all of it and you think, I think there's some sort of hope somewhere deep down where you think that if you talk about life, your reality, existence, the human condition, that there's this hope that maybe, just maybe someday, you'll find someone who kind of gets it or kind of feels it the way you do. Because I don't know about other people, but for me personally, I've always looked out into the world and thought, who am I, what is my place in this world, and what is any of this? And that might sound like typical stuff that most people think about, but it's one of those things where I think, because once in a while I'll listen to a podcast or something, or I'll listen to a show and I'll hear someone talk, and for a moment there when they talk, I almost feel like, they get it. They can kind of feel what I feel. Now, of course, when you say they get it, who knows what there is to get? Because what I feel and what I get and what other people get is so different that I don't know if there's any sort of eternal get that we all feel. Because that's the thing that's strange, is that we're all humans, but we all see the world so differently at times because of our experiences and we see the world so differently because of our experiences, the kind of life we've had, whether we've gone through a lot of pain, whether we had a lot of love in our life, whether we had a lot of trauma in our life, and that really shapes us so much, the way we feel, the way we act. So we're so different because of the lives we've lived, and also our capacities are different. Like, if I'm having a conversation with a mathematician and he starts talking about like really deep mathematical problems, I'm going to get lost because it's just not something my brain is wired to do very well, and so we all have different capabilities. And when I look around and I see people, I see everybody with very different capabilities, so that in itself will make us communicate differently. Somebody's really good at playing music, or somebody's really good at drawing, or somebody's really good at science, or somebody's really good at, like an architect designing buildings. Their reality and their ability to make sense of the world they live in is going to be drastically different than yours. So you end up feeling sort of alone because you feel like, who gets you? Who understands what you're going through and what you're feeling? And it's a weird thing because a lot of the times either people are not capable of having really deep feelings and thoughts on their reality and who they are and what they're doing here, or they're just too distracted by their life, because a lot of people live super intense lives, especially if you're somebody who's doing very elaborate jobs, whether it's designing buildings or, like you work in medicine, you're working all day. It's like you don't have time to sit there and philosophize about your existence and life, and that goes for many people. They don't have to be a doctor or an architect. It could just be simply just someone going to school. I remember how crazy it was being a kid and going to school and going to high school, and then like after that, because you're born and life is happening to you so fast that you don't have time to sit there and think too much, because it just keeps happening to you. Really from the time you're born until like your 30s, because I feel like life is just happening to you so much that it's hard to even have time to sit and contemplate these things, because it's just life just keeps happening to you. When I look at my 20s, it was just like it just kept happening, and it's just you get so overwhelmed at the idea of like, where do you belong in this thing, especially if you're somebody that feels like you can't quite find your place in the world. You're not exactly sure, because there's this idea of identifying with something. What are you? Do you want to be a doctor? Oh, you want to be a YouTube guy? Oh, that's cool. But the thing is, I don't want to be a YouTube guy. And that's the thing. It's during my 20s, I think I was still looking for something to be. And in my 30s, and now that I just hit 40, it's like, it's different, because now I look at it more from an existential point of view of like, I am just an awareness existing. And when you get to that level, it's very easy to lose people, because most people are just trying to find some sort of identity for themselves, So if you're going around telling people you feel like just an awareness, having just existing, they're going to be like, I don't know what to tell you, buddy. Like, just go do something, Jesus Christ, because it just sounds so abstract. And like, where do you go from there? Where do you go from this idea of that you're just an awareness existing? Like, where is the end game in that, right? Because if you have the end game of like, well, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a rocket scientist, I'm going to be a plumber, I'm going to be whatever you are, and then I'm going to live my life, I'm going to have a family, and then we all die, and that's it, or whatever, like you have your life kind of like, you have a picture of it, I want to, so you have all these ideas of what you want and how you see yourself, but I don't see myself as anything. I don't see myself as absolutely anything. I just see myself as an awareness existing. I know I'm in this body and my name is Tony, and people see me in a certain way, like I have a particular, we all look the way we look, we have a particular personality, so you think you're something, but I don't feel like anything. And we're here, and this idea of, like I said, that once in a while, why I make YouTube videos, it's for this, probably for just a desperate attempt at trying to connect with somebody. Like you make a video and somebody's like, man, I can kind of feel that. I can kind of see where you're coming from, or just do anything, because, in life, we kind of just, from an early age, we just have the friends we have, the family we have, and they could be extremely loving, sweet people, but that there's no guarantee that when they look at you, or when you look at them, like you feel like they're on the same path as you. What I mean is, all of our understanding of what this is so different, that like I can have a friend that I've known since I was in high school and I can talk to them, but it doesn't mean we're going to connect that deeply on philosophy, on life, on existence, on spirituality, on why we're here, what we're doing, what all of this is. So you can be surrounded by friends and family and still feel unbelievably alone. And I think that desperate attempt to connect with other people in the world is the same way that when I listen to a podcast, like I said, sometimes I'll hear somebody talk. A guy that I listen to that I really like is a guy by the name of Daniele Bolelli. He does a podcast called History on Fire, but he also does other things. When I hear him talk about stuff, I connect with him a lot. And why do I connect with him a lot? And other people like him, I'm just signaling him out right now just as an example of somebody that I connect with, is this idea of we're all wired differently. I know people who are so unbelievably gentle and sensitive and loving, and they feel so much. It's almost like they feel so much, it's like they're like this bundle of feeling and emotion. And I know other people who are incredibly smart and intellectual, and they got an incredible intellect. Incredible, and you talk to them. But I meet very, 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 very few people that have this strange hyper combination of both, where they love to intellectualize a lot, philosophize a lot, think about bigger concepts, but they're also incredibly emotional and sensitive. And I took this test. My younger brother told me to take this test a while ago because he wanted to know my personality type. And there's this test you can take to determine your personality type, and I took this test, and I guess let's see, what do they call? I don't know exactly what that means particularly, how deep you want to go into this test and how valid they are, but as a general guideline, I assume that if I took the test and I'm an INFP and 4% of the population is that, I assume it's people who are very hypersensitive and emotional, and they feel things emotionally very deeply, but also they have the intellect side, right? Because and that is a really strange combination to have, because it's almost like when I talk to somebody and they say that they're very emotional, very sensitive, and you can feel for them because you can see that they're very delicate and very sensitive and very emotional, and you can connect with them on that emotional level, be there for them, feel it with them, feel their pain, especially since you can, because if you feel a lot of it, if you're very sensitive and very empathic to people's feelings, you can feel their pain. So when someone, like sometimes when I see somebody and I talk to them and I can see that they're very gentle and very emotional and they're just a very delicate person, it's like almost heartbreaking, because it's like it's hard for me to even look at them in the eyes because I could just see that sort of gentleness and that delicateness in them. And I can feel that and I can connect with them on that. But then if I try to talk to them about like higher concepts, about philosophy, about existence, they look at me with this sort of sad look, like I can tell that maybe they can kind of get lost in that, because they're like, I was connecting with them very deeply emotionally, but the intellectual side, we weren't connecting on that. And that's kind of heartbreaking, because you want to look at somebody and you want to connect with them on so many different levels. And that's the irony of like, feels like, is there any person out there that you can connect with on every level, intellectually and emotionally? Because, and I think that's why I make YouTube videos, probably just for a hope of looking out into the universe and seeing who else is out there, because people talk about this a lot, about this idea that like fundamentally we're alone, like this, we all there's a couple of simple sort of like breakdowns that you can think about, or the human conditions, and like the idea that and one of them is this idea that we feel fundamentally alone because we live our life alone even when we're together with people, because you experience life only through your own eyes. Like, even if you're with somebody, you're just experiencing life from your perspective. It's always in your own head. Life is just in your own head, and everyone around you is like this movie. And that sounds so cold and lonely, just like it says. That's why we have this, because I think we fundamentally feel alone. But like I said, not everybody does. I just think it depends on this idea of feeling fundamentally alone. So the idea of wanting to look into somebody's eyes and feel like you can connect with them on every level, probably in the hopes that you feel less fundamentally alone. Like, you want to look at somebody and you want to know they see you, they acknowledge your existence, they understand every part of you. And I really think that that's why people turn to religion a lot. I know I talk a lot about this idea that, like, people turn to religion a lot also out of fear, especially since they make you feel afraid. Like, like, hey, Jesus is this nice guy who's about love, but also, you got to worship him and admit your sins because he's the true Son of God. And if you don't, you'll be damned to hell. You'll live in an eternity in hell. So I know that, like, people maybe perhaps go towards religion because of the fear too. But I think for a lot of people also, it's this idea and this hope of, like, maybe there's like this eternal universal consciousness that's out there that sees you the way you are, that maybe they understand you and they acknowledge your existence in a way that fully satisfies you. Like, they can just look at you and just know everything about you, understand the deepest parts of your intellect, the deepest parts of your emotions, and everything that makes you. And of course people hope for that, or they think about that, or they connect with that, because, like I said, fundamentally we experience life through our own eyes, even when we're with other people. And not only do we experience life only through our eyes, and not only are we trying so desperately to connect with people and feel like you can look at someone in the eye and they see you there, they see you, and they understand the things you're thinking about intellectually and emotionally. They understand everything. They feel like they understand you in a way that actually makes you feel like, wow, okay, I feel a little bit less alone. And then what's crazy is, even if you're lucky enough to have that, then of course there's just this fragile nature of life, and how life fragile is. For example, if somebody is in your life, there's no guarantee that they'll be in your life tomorrow. And people die, people fade away, people move on to other things. So it's like this temporary nature of life, almost like we're flying through this infinite universe alone, and once in a while we're lucky enough to grab someone's hand and we look at them in the eye, and we're there together. We're there. We see each other. We acknowledge each other's existence. We acknowledge each other's loneliness. We acknowledge how crazy this is, that we're flying through this infinite universe, and we've met. We've bumped into each other for a small, brief moment, and it's sort of heartbreaking to know that it's going to be a moment. It's not going to last, because everybody's on their own path and everything is temporary. So every moment you have with somebody is a temporary moment, and then things change and people go onto their own path, and things constantly change, right? Because there's just never-ending momentum in this motion, that nothing stays the same forever. There's constant change. So this feeling of flying through this infinite, vast universe, and then once in a while you feel lucky enough to bump into somebody that you feel like they know you, they get you, they love you, they acknowledge your existence, and knowing even that is, you're hanging on to them for dear life, because you know they're just going to slip away again, and then the next person comes. And then that person is with you and they connect with you, and then they slip away and the next person comes. And you look at that big picture wise and you think, wow, like, where does that end? How does that end? And it's just like this vastness, because we forget about that. We get so trapped in our simple day-to-day life that we rarely look up into the universe, into the sky, and realize we're on this rock flying through infinite space. And we just don't think about it very often. And that's what we are. We're this awareness flying through infinite space. And once in a while, we get lucky enough to find somebody in our life that we can hold on to for a little bit, to acknowledge our existence, to acknowledge our loneliness, and then boom, they're gone. And then if you're lucky, maybe someone else will come along. And yeah, see, this is why it's hard for me to connect to a lot of people, because if I say this, people are just going to look at it like, Jesus Christ, man up, come on, man, tough it out, just be a man, like, live your life, have an identity, like, be somebody, like, create an identity, be something that people admire, become like a very good something, like, be the best tennis player, be an architect, be just whatever you do, just have this thing, be somebody, and just enjoy your life and don't think about anything else, but this goes back to like how we are what we are, and you think what you're capable of thinking and what you're capable of feeling. And these are the things I think, and these are the things I feel. And that's how I am. And that's how you are. You are the way you are. And we all are the way we are. And that was my little talk today. And for anybody who maybe relates to that, feels what I'm talking about, if you feel like you're flying through this infinite space by yourself, and you feel that sort of fundamental loneliness, hopefully you grab someone's hand and you run into somebody that makes you feel slightly less alone. And even though I know that doesn't last forever, and then that fades away because everything is temporary, and maybe you'll get lucky again to find someone else, I hope at least you find someone once in your existence to at least feel that connection at least once, because once is better than nothing. And where this all leads, your guess is as good as mine, and I'll leave it at that. And so have a beautiful day, and that's it. Bye.